Hi, I'm John. This is my show, Orange is the New Black Cards. So I just want to talk about hype in the sports card market and stuff. And so what's occurring, like what I can see is that's occurring is that sports has a huge fan base, okay? And sports cards is a legitimate investment within the sports fan base and stuff. There is legitimate value in sports cards. So it looks like that these other industries and people have come into the sports card market to generate like its promotion for their product and stuff. And so there's all this weird stuff that I see that's going on, right? So like, let me just tell you one thing really quick too. Like, okay, so as I was alive back in the 80s and stuff, so I saw that and I was into sports cards, big sports fan, into sports cards. And so the other thing too is like, as being a sports fan, okay, so when I grew up, I thought I could be a football player. I thought I could be a baseball player. I was never really good at basketball, so I definitely never would have thought I could be a basketball player. But I had friends that could have been basketball players and shit, right? So when you're growing up, you can actually think that I can be that. Right? You think I can be that. So that's kind of what's taking place in the sports card market, is that they're creating this new like wealth in the sports card market so that they want the kids to grow up and think that I can be a sports card dealer. I can do that. Well, if I don't make it in sports, well, I can sell sports cards and I can be a dealer. I can make money in that. And this is a bigger thing of what's like going on and how they're driving this market, right? So, and also just to mention one thing is, with 87 Tops, that was the set that just like set it off. It went wild. 87 Tops, because you had a huge like rookie class. There's so many rookies in the 87 Top set, or in 87, right? But what happened was that 87 Tops was booming and booming, and card shops were opening up all the place. I can even tell you, there was a specific card shop on Bellflower Boulevard. So in Bellflower, California, it was on Bellflower Boulevard. A guy opened up a card shop, and then he only had a lease for like 1 or 2 years or something, probably just a year. Then the guy that actually owned the property kicked the guy out, kicked the card shop. The guy that was running the card shop, his lease came up, and the owner of the property kicked him out and opened up his own card shop in that same exact location. This is the kind of shit that's like, that's some scandalous shit, But that's like what was taking place and stuff. These are the things that occur. And then what happens, it's just inevitable that in a matter of time, there's too much of it, and they all cause themselves to collapse on each other because they all fled the market, and everybody's trying to get rich doing this. Oh, let's be cool. Let's be the sports card dealers, right? So that's the thing that was happening with sports card shops. And then there's also like 87 Tops. They were producing so much of that stuff that there was other stores that were like okay, so if you have like a Walmart, but then they have like a Sam's Club, right? I can't think of the proper name. That's like the bulk store, the discount store, right? But so there was other types of stores that were out there, not like Sam's Club, but there was other types of stores like that. So those stores, you would go in there and there would be a pallet full of 87 Tops boxes, right? Completely full. You would go into those stores, they'd have a pallet full of freaking 87 Tops boxes for sale. And people were buying them and shit, right? Thinking, I could buy this, I'll just put it away, and sit on it for 20, 30 years, and, then I'll make some money. But this is like the hype stuff of what they were doing, things that occurred and stuff that I actually have seen happen and stuff, right? So now we're in this modern world and stuff, right? So I was going to show you this Vegas Dave. I went there, and then an interesting thing happened is that Vegas Dave has removed all of his old videos, and the only video he has now is this movie that he has released. It's kind of like he's rebranding himself, because these people talk about the brands and all their image and stuff, right? So one thing with like Vegas Dave, the way how he got hyped up, one of the big things is he was gambling, and he said, oh, I'm picking the winners of like the team that wins the World Series, or a team that wins the Super Bowl, right? And he'll, like, I think I seen him say the Kansas City Royals. I know he had different bets and stuff, right? But I think the Royals is one. He said he won $2.5 million on the Kansas City Royals, okay? But just because he won that, now I believe he did win a bet that paid him off that kind of money. But what we don't know is how many other teams did he invest in? Like, did he have 10 teams that he had bet $100,000 on? and then the one team paid 25-1, like the Royals, and he cashed that in for $2.5 million. And then what he does is he takes it and he hypes it up. That was what I see of what he was doing, is he's not a legitimate sports handicapper, because I watched him do something, and the way of what he did it, I instantly know, because I am a sports handicapper. I do gamble on sports. He did a round robin. This was on the first day of baseball last year. Last year on this page, he offered up a free pick to the public, right? And it was a round robin pick. But so a round robin would be, if you have four, let's say you got 4 games, you want to do a round robin 3 and 4. So what that does is, if you want to do the round robin 3s, that covers every combination of 3-team parlay that you could have out of the 4 bets. And then you do the 4-teamer so you can catch the 4-teamer. So round robin 3s and 4s. But so the idea of when you're betting a round robin, the purpose for doing that is, what you're trying to do is you're trying to pick the underdogs, what they call the pluses, right? So it's there's like a thing in the casinos, because I worked in there too, and it's like, okay, the actual term is money line. It's an underdog on the money line, right? It's a dog, a money line dog. That's the way I would say it. Money line dog, right? And so, but the people in the industry, they always want to just call it pluses. Well, how many pluses? Because they started shutting down in the casinos how many moneyline dogs, but they would call them pluses. How many pluses? But then there was a thing I'd run into with doing that too, is that they started like what you would call juice in the line, where you always would have a 110, that's called 110 flat. So it's minus 110, minus 110, like on a point spread. If it's a -7, then it's a minus 110. That means everybody bets the same thing. If you take the +7, or if you give the 7 -7, then you get minus 110. That means you bet $11 to profit 10. So 11 turns into 21 and shit, right? So that was the standard for years. That was the standard. Then they started what I would call juice in that line. And so instead of being flat, minus 110 flat constantly, then you might get like a minus 125. And it's because some of the lines, they don't want to move them. They want to keep like the specific lines, like the 3. They don't want to move a 3 to a 3.5. That's a big difference in the gambling world and shit, right? That half point has a great deal of value and shit when you're moving from like 3 to 3.5 and shit, or from 2.5 to 3. They want to keep it on the 3, right? There's things of what they do. So what they did, instead of moving the line, because they needed to make an adjustment, but they didn't want to move the line, because moving that number caused other problems for the middlers, the people that are the middlers and shit. They come in and they want to middle the game. So there's all this shit going on and shit, right? So they didn't want to move the line, so they started juicing the number. And so instead of like being flat minus 110s, they would give you something like a minus 125 plus 105, right? Now I used to work at the casino when this was happening, and people come in. This was bullshit. I hated that, because everybody knew that you were bet 11 to win 10. So I'd have people come in and they say, okay, I want to take that game, right? They say, I want to take the Packers, and it would be a -7. And then they'd say it for 110, and I'd have to say, I'm sorry, but if you want to take the Packers at that -7, you're going to have to pay 125 to win 100. And the people would be like, what the fuck are you talking about, right? I had to deal with it. That's the bullshit in the world, too. You get these people out there making up all the rules. I'm the guy in there that has to deal with the fucking customer. I'm the one who has to explain to him, sorry, you're going to have to pay $125, right? So, but on the other side, you would have the plus 105, so you'd bet $100, you would profit $105, okay? Now that is technically a plus. And then, so this is a thing as a gambler that I'd have to run into. I'd go to some of the casinos and they'd say, sorry, you're limited to only 4 pluses on a game. And I'd have to explain to them, no, that when they're talking pluses, they mean moneyline dogs. They don't mean pluses when it's on a plus 105, because they juice the fucking point spread and shit. They fuck that shit up. So there's all this shit of what you'd have to do with, right? So getting back to Vegas, Dave, so when you're betting a round robin 3s and 4s, the purpose for betting the round robin when you're doing like a 3 and 4, to actually do it properly, is that you've got 4 underdogs. And so what you do is you're like, well, if I hit 3 of those, because they have the plus price on them, if I hit 3 of them, I'll still make a good profit, right? So what you do for like a money line, a round robin, you want pluses in there, okay? So if you're doing like a round robin 3s and 4s, the whole purpose is you're going to have some plus dog action. Or maybe you've got like a plus 300, right? And you're like, I want to make sure I get paid with that plus 300. You're going to have somewhere, there's got to be dogs embedded into your round robin. If you don't have money line prices, the plus prices, the money line dogs, there's no purpose for doing a round robin, right? So last year at the first baseball game of last season, I saw Vegas Dave came out and he gave a free pick, and what he offered was a round robin 3s and 4s, and he didn't have any pluses in there. So, and I even put a comment on his page saying like, dude, you don't even know how to bet. Like, that's like the whole purpose for betting that round robin 3s and 4s is because you're trying to take advantage of your plus action. You don't want to lose out. Like if you have a plus 300, you want to make sure you get paid off of that. Now, if you had a plus 300 and a minus 125, minus 150, minus 140, that's okay, but that's why you put it in the round robin, because you want to make sure that if that plus 300 comes in, you want to make sure you get paid off of that so you can still generate the profit off you only getting 3 winners, you know, so, but you have to bet multiple bets. That's going to take, it's going to be like 4 bets and shit, right? So it's just, it's tricky shit and stuff, right? But so Vegas Dave offers up this round robin 3 and 4 last year on the first game of the baseball season, and they were all minuses. And he's trying to tell people, oh, you'll make money if you only hit 3, which I don't think he would have. If you would have hit 3, if you would have hit 3 winners out of his round robin, you would have lost money. And so I don't think you would have made a profit off that. But he was telling the people, you'll make money if you only hit 3, you'll make money. And it was like, boy, he doesn't even know how to bet the fucking round robin. He's lying to the people, telling them they're going to make money if they fucking hit only 3, and he's getting them to make all these bets. It was just a bunch of bullshit stuff like that, right? So one of the things that with the Vegas Dave, why I'm bringing this up is because he's very famous in the sports card community for selling that Mike Trout superfractor, right? But so and that's why I was going to his video, because I wanted to show you that when he bought that Mike Trout superfractor, this is something else that I think that somebody had told him that we're going to pay a big dollar amount. We want to make a splash in the sports card community that these cards can be worth super amounts of money, right? And in order for them they have the buyer already set up. This is the way I see it. They already have the buyer set up to pay for that card, for a certain card. And it's because then Vegas Dave, he said there was a thing that he was going to invest in sports cards. There was a thing. I wanted to get the recording of it so I could actually show you. But he then asked a person, who do I buy? Which player do I go buy? Okay, it's not that he knew on his own. If he's such a sports handicapper and he knows sports and stuff, he should know who the best player is. He should already know that, you know. He should have known that Mike Trout would have been a good person, but somebody told him. That's what I was going here to look for. I was going to go look at that video. I was going to show you that when he bought that Mike Trout, that he asked somebody else. Somebody else told him to buy Mike Trout. And what that means to me is that it was all a setup, a scam, that somebody had told Vegas Dave that they were going to be willing to pay a large amount of money for a right type of superfractor card that they could claim to be worth millions of dollars, right? So that's why Vegas Dave had to say, well, he was like, well, what player should I buy? Who should I go look for and shit, right? Because he didn't know who it was. It's not that he just took his money and he knew Mike Trout was the guy. He knew that the superfractor was the right card to have. Somebody told him, and it said it in his video that somebody had told him to buy Mike Trout, right? So I was going to show you that, and I went to his page, and what I find out is that he's removed all of his videos, and the only video he's got now is this one here with this movie, which I haven't watched it and shit, right? Because it's bullshit stuff. I know what he did. I mean, I have a basic idea of what he's doing. He was giving fake social security numbers to the casinos. And so when he was making bets, he was doing them with different social security numbers and fake numbers, and they caught on to him, and they almost put his ass in jail for it and shit, right? And that's how he got banned. When he talks about how he got banned, he didn't get banned because he was such a big winner. He got banned because he was doing devious tactics in the casino world. You can't do shit like that, which I do understand that casinos will ban you when you're really good and shit. That is a thing that does occur. That's why he was able to use that. That's what, but so, okay, so... But so that's what I'm saying is that the Vegas Dave thing, I don't believe that happened naturally. I believe that it was all a setup from the beginning. The reason he bought the card is because he already knew he had a buyer down the road that was going to purchase it, and the person set it up with Vegas Dave because they could use him for advertisement. Oh, this Vegas Dave, this gambler, and look at what he did with the sports card, and look at what he sold it for. And then that makes the whole sports card community like being like, well, we want to emulate what Vegas Dave did. I can buy sports cards too and shit, right? I can go get one of those cards and maybe I can make millions of dollars and shit, right? So there's this thing, it's fake though. What's going on, there's a big fakeness part of what's going on. That's what I'm trying to show you in this video. So Another one here is the She Collect Cards, because she's like all dove into like the F1 market, right? She doesn't know shit about F1. Okay, I remember when it was Kobe cards that were popular and stuff. She's all Kobe, oh, basketball, the NBA, because that was the big hype and shit, right? So if something else is going on, and she's got some connection that she knows that if she falls in line and hypes the right cards and stuff, that she can get some kind of a voice in the sports card community, and she can be an influencer and stuff. That's her real goal and stuff. There's something else going on here of what she's going for, and she's connected with people that have informed her, this is how you do it, and you got to do this stuff. You got to look like you're a real card dealer and stuff. But what they're trying to do is get her to be some kind of an influencer. And so she can't be trusted and shit, right? And so she's doing all this F1. Now, with sports, like I was saying, when I was growing up a kid, I could dream of being a basketball player, a football player, a baseball player. You could dream of being a hockey player. You could dream of being a soccer player. Who grows up as a kid dreaming about being an F1 driver? That's just... you're talking extremely small amount, okay? And because of that, F1 doesn't have a fan base, because the children in America do not grow up thinking that they're going to be F1 drivers. Like, that's going to be small. You're not driving, like, I know that there are kids out there that race go-karts that are drivers, okay, but they've got family money and shit, right? So, like, right there, you can't just do it on your own as a kid. You can't just be like, okay, here, me and my buddies, let's go race cars today. Okay, you're going to have some money, somebody taking you to do that stuff. It's not something you can just get into, right? So therefore, F1 is going to have a small fan base. It's not going to have the same fan base of what actual sports kids who think, I could just get a basketball, I go play basketball. I get myself a glove and a ball and a bat, you know, we go play baseball all day. That's what I did in the summertime as a kid. I played baseball every fucking day. We played baseball and football and shit. Not much basketball. We weren't doing basketball. We played baseball and football basically every day during the summertime and shit, right? There's a thing too, like the smog. What people don't know is like the smog was bad, like in LA when I was a kid in the summertime, and they'd have smog warning and shit, right? They'd say, oh, the smog's going to be bad. But so we'd go out and play football in the smog, and then you couldn't breathe. After we'd be out there playing for a couple hours football, it actually, like, if people don't know about, like, the smog shit and the stuff that used to be, how it used to be, I could tell you, as a kid, we'd go play football, and then it would be hard to breathe as a kid. After you played for a couple hours, you couldn't breathe because of that smog shit that was actually happening. That stuff that actually was going on and shit, right? Just to mention to you, is stuff that happens in shit, real life and shit, right? So you got this girl hyping up these F1 cards, right? And so here, let me just show you a little thing here.
All right, on to the next one that I was watching very, very closely up till the very last minute was the 2020 Topps Chrome Formula One Complete Autograph Variation Set, which included errors and redemptions and whatnot. And this is an incredible project.
Okay, so, it's an incredible project. Okay, so it ended up selling for, I guess it's $111,000, but with the buyer's premium, $133,000. Now, if you're an F1 fan and shit, right? If you got big money and stuff, and if you're into F1 because you're into Ferraris, because you own Ferraris and you own Mercedes and shit, right? Well, then if you're that kind of wealthy person and you're into that stuff, well, then you're probably into fine art. You probably actually have a collection, you would collect art. And you would respect, like, artists, the names, because that's that culture. It's the culture of that wealthy culture. You respect artists, you know, and you respect these people that are on that. You're talking about art, real art, right? The culture of art and stuff, and the culture of, like, they drive Mercedes, and maybe they'd like to go to races and stuff, and they have some interest in that. But now, would those type of people actually be people that are participating in collecting sports cards? Because a sports card, it's art to us and shit, but would that be looked upon as art to people that are actually collecting art and people that go to art galleries who know or talk about Picassos and frickin' they want to see the Van Goghs and all that stuff? And so would those people really appreciate cards as fine art and stuff? And I don't think so. So I think that what is happening with the F1 market is that they're trying to generate fan base within the young kids because they can't do it naturally. They can't generate a fan base in the F1 for kids because the kids are not having dreams or visions of growing up and being an F1 driver. But if you create value within the cards, within the sports card community. The kids are growing up now thinking that they can be sports card dealers. Okay, see how now it's linked itself into having dreams of being wealth and rich. It's happened just because of the cards. Okay, so you don't have to be a fan of F1 or have dreams of becoming an F1 like race car driver. You can have dreams of being a sports card dealer, because they're creating all this false illusion of that all these cards are valuable, and they're creating all these cards that are supposed to be like these high-end cards and shit, right? So now, if you're like Mercedes and you're Ferrari, you're these huge fucking, these big car companies, right? With these very expensive cards, with these very expensive cars, your mission, what you're trying to do if you're those big companies, you're trying to build a fan base. You're trying to get children to watch your sport. But the children will not watch that sport. So how do you get them to watch the sport? Is that you create the card market. You insert that sport into the card market. You create the illusion of the valuable cards and shit. So then the kids start collecting the cards, because then if they know if they collect the cards that they're going to have an interest in the sport, and they're going to start watching the sport. So I think that's what's occurring here, which means what's happening is that the people that are buying these cards, that are paying the big bucks for them, they're not actually collectors that are buying those cards because they think the cards are collectible. What they're doing is they're trying to create a buzz around the F1 market that these cards are valuable, and they're paying big dollars for these cards, but they're paying big dollars because it's a form of advertisement. It's not real collectors. It's not a real market. That's what I think is going on here. And so you'll see people out there that are buying the cards and making money, and they have to be these influencers, and that's why you get these people they want to make sure that the cards are getting a lot of attention when they make these sales, and then they get the influencer card market people talking about them. Then they get those cards to buy they get those influencers in the card market to buy those cards and sell them so that they talk about them. Then that creates a buzz within the entire sports card community, which is what they're doing, is they're trying to create value for those cards because they want to get the community to start paying attention to their sport. They're trying to build a fan base. I do not believe that this market is actually a valid market. I don't believe that these sales are actually valid sales from people that are fans of the F1. I think that the people that are buying these cards are like the owners of like Ferrari and F1. They're doing it, they're buying the cards, and they're using the attention to drive around the attention of the cards being valuable. They're using that as advertisement to try and gain interest in their sport. That's what I actually think is occurring here. I don't believe the F1 market has value and shit, right? And the people that are out there hyping it up, I don't trust them whatsoever. I don't trust them that they actually care about F1. They're only in it for the buck. They're trying to make a buck, and they're trying to become these influencers, and that's what it's about. But because they know they've got connections. If they become an influencer, if they hype it up, if they do what the industry people want them to do, if they're good hype people, then they'll get into the connections. They'll make connections with the industry people, which will gain for them favor, and it'll lead to other things for them to be prosperous in the future and shit, right? So that's what I think is going on there. So now, this is Sports Card Radio. He's going to mention something about Jimmy's Kentucky Roadshow here. Let's listen to this.
Same thing with the Kentucky sports card guy. Again, I don't know his specific situation, but I can imagine that this guy has never really made money in sports cards. And you can't tell me that one little hobby shop in Kentucky, even if it's successful, is then going to go open one and do a build out in New York, and then go open one in LA, and then go open one in the Bay Area. I know how much that's going to cost. And then also hire Tracy Hackler from Panini. No, this guy made a lot of money in some other business. Again, kudos to him. I'm not hating.
Kudos to him. You see, because this is all they want. All they're really interested in is like, well, if you make money, then you're in. And we're going to treat you with respect and shit as long as you're making money. That's all they do. And it's like, this is what I've been saying about Jimmy's Kentucky Roadshow, is that there's something else going on with him because he's really handsy with the kids. And he's obviously has a lot of other money that his sports card shop, okay, I would assume because everybody anybody's been making money the last couple of years, I would assume that there's been some money he's probably has made. But he obviously had other money to build his shop, to buy the floor at the Kentucky thing. I know his grandfather was like, he said it was like a doctor for like the horse, for the big horses of the Kentucky Derby and stuff like that. He worked on them, some kind of like, you know, he was stuff like that. He's got family money in him, right? So the other thing of what we don't know that's going on here is that you have to understand that in the world, there is a pedophile community. There are actual pedophiles out there. It's a secret community, and those people, to have access, like, they have like pimps, like people that are like pimps, and like what they call pimps and madams and shit, right? And they supply women for sexual pleasure to these high business people, right? These people that they want to come into town, they want to have a sexual adventure with some hot woman. Okay, well, there's pedophiles out there, and that means that there's a market for like a pimp madam type of person to be able to bring children and pimp out these children and shit, right? So Jimmy's Kentucky Roadshow, from the way I see him and what's going on, there's a big thing too with like the Freemasons and shit, right? There could be like a thing of like the Freemason community and stuff. There's like, I've heard stories about them and shit, and it could be all revolving around that these people, what the secret group could be is that it could be part of these Freemasons who abuse these children and shit, and they indoctrinate them into that culture of being sexually abused and shit. Like, that's one of the things when you see all these people that are growing up and they're like these it's the gay community, right? And these transvestites, these people doing all that stuff. And a lot of those people, what I would see is that it's like a lot of those people look like they got mental problems. And it's like, well, how do they get mental problems? It's like, well, they were probably being sexually abused when they were children and shit, right? So there's just like, there's so much bigger stories of what's taking place here and what's going on. And as you can see right now, when you know it's like Disney, the actual company Disney is endorsing the grooming of sexualizing children in like fucking first grade. They're trying to pass laws to teach kids sex education about fucking gender dysphoria and all this stuff. Dude, when I guarantee when I was 5, 6 years old, I sure as hell didn't need somebody coming up to me saying, are you really a boy? Do you really like girls? Or maybe you're a woman inside. I sure as hell didn't want somebody in school. I can't imagine somebody in school coming up to my teacher trying to teach me about, are you really a boy? Like, it's mind-blowing that shit would even be allowed to. It's fucking crazy. But you know who's endorsing it? Disney's endorsing it. And then you find out that the person that runs Disney, I don't know if it's the operator of Disney World in Florida, or if it's it might be, because I'm not sure, she was some big thing with the Disney thing. Then she comes out and says she's got 2 children that are like trans children or some weird fucking shit. And it's like, there's some weird shit fucking going on. And even when you get a company like Disney, who's all supposed to be about making children's entertainment and being for the good-hearted, the nature of children and all this stuff, and they're coming out promoting that the teachers should be able to fucking talk to fucking children about sexual fucking dysphoria, whatever, it's cross-gender and bullshit. It's fucking, you got to understand that this shit's real. There's big fucking groups out there. And if there's big groups out there and there's a market for these pedophiles out there, who's not to say that Jimmy's Kentucky Roadshow isn't what he's actually about? He's not about sports cards. What he's about is penetrating into a market where children are there and they're vulnerable, and they've been hyping them all up to make all this money, and they know that these kids can't afford all these fucking cards, so they know that they're gonna find vulnerable children. In that market, there's going to be kids that are vulnerable, and when they're coming into the sports card shop, a person like Jimmy is going to have the opportunity to spot the fucking kids and look to find the ones that he can take advantage of. He's a professional. He's been in that fucking field his whole life. So who's not to say that Jimmy isn't some form of a fucking pimp that's spotting out these fucking children by opening up these card shops? Now he's opening up the card shops. Now, is he really opening up the card shops in that community, or is he opening up a business which is going to enable him to have access to children in that community, because he knows that there's a large pedophile fucking community in those communities, and he wants to be able to supply these children for these pedophiles and shit, right? See, it's like, I talk crazy talk. You think fucking anybody else, they would even allow themselves to have a conversation like that? And no, they will not. That's why it's allowed to happen, because these stupid motherfuckers are so weak in the world, they don't stand up for anybody. They're afraid to give any fucking form of a real opinion because they're worried about being canceled, or people are gonna look at me like I'm crazy, and wah. So you people just fucking sit here and say, shut up, fucking Orange is the New Black Cards. We don't want to hear what you're saying. We don't care if there's children being molested by fucking Jimmy's Kentucky Roadshow. We don't care if Jimmy's opening up shops in all these fucking other cities so he can fucking groom these children and pimp them out to these dirty fucking disgusting pedophiles that are out there. We don't care. That's the whole fucking sports card community, what's taking place. And you get this jackass sports car radio. He just want to come out and bitch at everybody. He's just a bitch. He's a bitch while he wants to sit back and say, oh, but look at me. I got some money. Look at the cards I bought, you fucking losers. You're all a bunch of losers. He just wants to call everybody losers and say, look at me. I'm sports card radio. It's fucking ridiculous. This community is a bunch of fucking shit-ass motherfuckers in here. Everybody's just looking to make a quick fucking buck. Bunch of losers that couldn't be baseball players, couldn't be football players, couldn't be basketball players. So you're trying to live out your fucking childhood fantasies by collecting fucking cards and saying, well, now I'm a voice in the sports card community. And then you get to be somebody like Santiago Sports, and he gets to fucking have an interview with fucking Frank Gore and shit, right? He gets to fucking interview Adrian Peterson. He gets to interview all these people, and everybody's like, oh, I want to go do that. I could be a sports card dealer like fucking card collector too. Oh, I get to be card collector too. Now I'm hanging out with fucking all these football stars at the Super Bowl. It's bullshit. They're looking to take advantage of fucking kids. They're screwing with their minds. These big fucking industry fucking motherfuckers have infiltrated into the pure innocentness of being a sports fan and a fucking card collector. They've infiltrated and they've fucked it all up. And all these stupid motherfuckers out here telling me, shut up, we're making money off this. We're making money off this. Yeah, you're making money off this while Jimmy's Kentucky Roadshow's out there pimping fucking children that were not fortunate enough to be able to make the money of what you're making off that, and they want to make the money too. So he looks for these disadvantaged kids, and now those kids are getting fucked by these disgusting pedophile scumbags. Wake the fuck up. Do something in the fucking real world. Fucking care about people. Care about the world. Stop focusing on trying to be your fucking, I'm a sports card community influencer. Look at my fucking cards. Fucking scumbags.